Welcome back to Direct Station, where politics and planets collide and converge. I'm Kate Carey. For those just tuning in, we're tracking the planetary and earthbound events happening all around us each day. My goal here is to invite you into a conversation about the possibility that the sky and these extraordinary events in human history are related and fascinating and helpful if we want to understand our own power, our own assignment, or our own potential as individuals or as part of a collective. If it all seems a little woo-woo, I understand. But you pushed play. So I'm here to tell you that astrology is not something to believe in or not believe in. It is something to attend to or ignore. Okay, so let's lean into the politics and contextualize that within the planets. The idea here is that none of the old labels matter. It doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter which group you have affiliated with. On any number of these topics are all transient, right? Like the party's policies change. What they say they believe in or what they do or prioritize changes. So we are left to sort between ourselves what parts of which policies we can live with and cannot live with. I dive into the ones I can't live with here. But that doesn't mean I think any group of people are bad at all. I really honestly don't. And so I would just love to have a conversation with you, knowing that our history's got us to where we are. But if we want to foster an expansion of consciousness, right, like an expansion of what's possible for each of us as humans together, and moves our country forward, we're going to have to work together no matter who we are. James Carville once said that if you like everybody in your coalition, you are not in a coalition. And I love that. I use that a lot. I think about that a lot. Because if we are going to have the world we imagine for ourselves, really the details of how we would like to live and be in community, in country with one another, we are going to have to form coalitions across divides. We're going to have to get along with people who had a different label than us last time. So today, I want to focus our attention on the patriarchy, which is wild right now and worthy of an examination. I should say before we dive into this that I come to this topic with a strange credibility. One of my degrees is in women's studies, if you can believe such a thing. And last night, I decided to tell you that, and I decided that I should find a joke on the internet about it so that you don't think I take myself too seriously. I'm not a very funny person when I'm trying to be, so I wander the internet for a joke about being a Gen X women's studies major. I'm so sorry, but I have to share two of them because they made me laugh. Well, one's not that funny, but it's true. And one's really cracks me up. Okay, so if you don't think this is funny, that's fine. I'll waste 30 seconds on it, and like 4 people will enjoy it. One is, my women's studies degree came with a special superpower, the ability to say, we've literally been warning about this for decades in 7 different academic frameworks. Okay, and then the second one is, when I was getting my women's studies degree, we didn't have Twitter to debate theory. We had to argue about Judith Butler in person, uphill both ways in the snow. Come on, that's good, right? Okay, I'll move on. So you know how men are from Mars and women are from Venus? That's because planets are That's because planets are universally seen as having masculine or feminine energies. As the conversation about gender identity heated up here on Earth, some folks have decided that these distinctions don't work for them. And I say that's wonderful because you are relating to heavenly bodies as you are called to do. For me, though, generally, I do firmly experience them the way ancients laid it down, with the possible exception of Mercury, but I can discuss that another time. So Venus is associated with the feminine divine. We're spending a lot of time with Venus today. As a mythological figure, and when I'm talking about myths, I will tend to use Western astrological tropes here for the most part because my own heritage and any kind of studying I've done of mythology tends to be pretty rooted in Western narratives about how these planets function. But it's important to notice that those narratives do tend to be similar across cultures, with different characters, different names, different scenarios, but similar narratives. But I'll stick with the narratives that I know best, and choose your own for sure. But in my learning, Venus is Aphrodite. And then in all narratives about this feminine divine, Venus is goddess of abundance, fertility, love, beauty, desire, sex even, and our prosperity. She represents the idealized feminine form and embodies female sexuality, female power. So you have a planet that was named for Venus because of the patterns associated with the topics the ancients were tracking when this planet was in the sky. They were like, oh, all these themes come up. Let's name it after this goddess, right? Everybody did that. Everybody named it after their goddess of love, goddess of beauty, goddess of abundance. I mean, it's true. It's the strangest thing, but it is true. And it is one of the things that makes me believe that this is real. So the planet is associated with feminine energy, regardless of gender. Every human alive, despite whatever rhetoric you may have heard to the contrary, despite the ideology that sort of clouds our world, everybody has feminine energy. We all have both kinds of energy, and we manifest them in wonderfully different ways, but we all have both. So think of a woman. Well, I'll use Dolly Parton because she exhibits this business acumen, this protector energy, and this straight talk confidence. Or once I heard Cher tell a story of how her mom told her to marry a rich man, and she said, "Mom, I am a rich man." I love that story. Or think of a man. Bruce Willis is a fine example. In the Die Hard movies, right? He's always got that teddy bear. The reason he has that teddy bear is because he loves his family. He loves his children. He is tender about his ex-wife. He is tender about his children. Or in Sixth Sense, he shows up with this deep emotional story that connects with all of us. Or The Rock. The Rock is a fine example. He is this picture of this action hero who likes to be silly in front of us or vulnerable in front of us in movies, and knowing, I imagine, because that makes him more lovable, or we experience him as more of a whole person as a result of that. So Venus is about activating or affecting the feminine aspects of us and of human life. The planet's influence relates to harmony, attraction, aesthetics, and pleasure. Right now, Venus is currently at 9 degrees of Aries. So remember that the sky is broken up into sections from where we stand on Earth. If we look up, it's like someone drew a plate on the sky above us and divided it into sections. And those sections are named after signs, after horoscope signs. And each section has a theme, a set of topics that tends to be associated with it. The ancients wrote down across cultures, hey, this kind of stuff comes up when the planets are over there, right? Those themes tend to interact with the planets, and what we've started to understand about the planets, and when they're in this spot, we get this, right? So the ancients started tracking that all these feminine themes were coming up when Venus was in this particular part of the sky. I mean, she affects all these themes wherever she goes, but in the part we're going to talk about today, which is Aries, the part of the sky called Aries, the part of the sky associated with the warrior. So the goddess of love and values is in the sign of the warrior. She's in this realm of the masculine warrior as a feminine divine. So when you or the collective is being affected by Venus and Aries for one reason or another, it means that values, what matters to me, and relationships, who do I love, take on an assertion or a pioneering quality. The goddess of love picks up the sword of the god of war. Is really what it is. It's what the time is. And she's there. She's there. She just got there. She's been there for a minute, and she's going to be there for a while. Eventually, she's going to go backwards in there, and that's going to be big news. We'll talk about that a little bit. That's when the shit's going to really start to roll, most astrologers say. So we'll get some popcorn for that. Maybe we'll be in the street and we won't be eating popcorn. Okay, so you're seeing a bit of assertion lately, right? Women being brave. You saw that Maine governor, right? Push back on pulling away the civil rights of trans kids in her state. One of the most vulnerable groups in our society. So you have to remember when you're thinking about trans rights, it is such a hot button thing that gets eye rolls in some quarters, that gets fists in other corners. Like, it's a very provocative topic. How I want to talk about this topic is thinking about this as one of the most vulnerable groups in our society who don't deserve hate for wanting to be who they are, right? Like that, nobody does, right? So when I think about this and I watch how some are willing to kind of sacrifice that one category, I think about Martin Niemöller's poem about the Holocaust. I'll butcher it a little bit, but something like, they came for the trade unionists and I did not speak out because I'm not a trade unionist. They came for the socialists. I didn't speak out because I'm not a socialist. All the way down through the categories of people. And eventually there was no one left to speak for him. So that's how totalitarianism works. That's how fascism works. We got to speak out now while the attack is on these babies who never hurt or threatened anybody, right? So the fucking governor of Maine says, no, thank you. She's confronted by the president who says, I am the law. They're in the White House, by the way. He literally says that we're the federal law. He says, you'll lose all federal funding if you don't oppress these children. And she's like, no, I'll see you in court. Venus in Aries, ladies and gentlemen, has entered the chat. She just arrived on the 4th of February. And since then, you've started to see women speaking. Another example of that rising, I saw in an article this morning about, in the New York Times, called Women Watching Women Watching Women, which captures this kind of recursive, sorry, my computer's talking a lot today. Women watching women watching women. And the subtitle of this article is, in movies like The Last Showgirl, a new kind of woman has emerged on screen, our critic writes, that thanks to more of them being behind the camera. We talked a little bit yesterday about the North Node shifting into Pisces, which is the skyland of collective healing and authentic storytelling. And so off they go. Like the buffalo, finally returning home from Yellowstone to the Blackfoot Confederacy. In Saskatchewan, these new cinematic spaces represent the restoration of something that was taken, right? So women reclaim ownership of their own narratives, their own images, start producing a particular kind of speech in film. So it's a sign of hope. So remember I explained about the North and the South nodes, these super important mathematical points in the sky. You guys, even astronomers acknowledge these points, like they exist, they simply exist. Astronomers call them ascending and descending, which quite frankly makes more sense to me. But these are legit scientific points in the sky where the sun's arc and the moon's arc intersect in two places. So the North is where we're going. All that hope we just talked about is where we're going. We are aware of the phenomenon that things begin as something ends, right? So if my marriage is ending, it is because a new version of me is beginning, is emerging. Yeah? Or at the very least, a new version of the person I'm married to that's emerged. So all natural phenomena work this way. So as we are seeing signs of the collective, signs of home in the North, we are also seeing the powerful and dangerous death throes of the old way in the South. And the South is in Virgo, which is hierarchy, oppression, rigid structures, rules to control the other. And with that, we are seeing the patriarchy thresh around like the tail of a wounded dragon. In fact, almost universally across cultures, the North Node is understood to be the head of a dragon and the South Node is understood to be the tail. Isn't that fascinating? Across cultures, almost everybody came up with the same thing. So what is that tail doing? Well, the feminine body is under renewed assault, precisely as the comic feminine energies are heating up. So for a minute, it seemed like we were securely doing equality for women, right? So no one would blame you for thinking we were on our way to solving that one. And we are, but it's not as close as we thought it was or hoped it was. In fact, I had a conversation recently with my 16-year-old daughter about this, in which I was shaking my head about the state of things. And I said something like, I really thought we had this one. You know, like racism was the thing we really needed to focus on now. And she was nonplussed, looking at me like I had three heads. She's like, why would you think that? She looks at me and says something like that often, but, you know, why would I think that? And I'm looking at her and I'm remembering that she's grown up with boys who, once they hit middle school, which is sort of mid-pandemic, early pandemic, they were graffitiing and online bullying and spouting off in class with these misogynistic themes that they had learned from people like Andrew Tate online. Or, you know, so I'm sure there's other names that I can't come up with at the moment. But, you know, guys who make boys think they wish they could afford a Cybertruck. And all of that is the dragon's tail thrashing around because it is dying. Hella dangerous and dying. You know, because this equality dream we have, something that, frankly, my mother's generation thought they had handled. By equality, I mean like having a credit card in our name or living under a law in which it's not okay for our husbands to rape us. Having the right to decide to shed cells holed up in our wombs that could turn into a baby if we can't afford a baby or for any reason. We would rather that those cells don't become a baby. There's 1,000 domains I could name, but financial independence and control over your own health care and life choices and access to real power of your own, that kind of thing. We can start there for today. So there's been real trouble manifesting around these rights in these recent months. They've been threatened or gleefully plotted against for a while, which is a longer story we can get into another day. But two quick examples of this. The Idaho Town Hall, I'm guessing you've seen video of. Her name, I'm gonna do my best to pronounce it. I've practiced it, but I'm not sure I got it. So Teresa Borenpole is how I understand her name to sound. There's a woman in Idaho who, at one of these town halls, was one of the brave people showing up to speak this week. We've been talking about how this is happening. People are rising. During the town hall, the speaker was lecturing on the virtues of Mr. Musk's efforts to dismantle the government, and several people were calling out to interrupt the proceedings, as any good civilly disobedient person would do. We talked earlier in the week about how this has been a useful tactic in the past and turned out to be actually rather effective when the Tea Party employed it in 2009. They were being shushed and they were being told that the presentation would need to go on and that there would be another time to get their, quote, I swear to God, stupid remarks, the man said into the microphone, answered. So finally, Teresa starts yelling out, is this a lecture or a town hall? She says it twice, top of her lungs. And there's all kinds of like rabble-rousing going on all around. She says that loud and clear. Is this a lecture or a town hall? At which point, the sheriff in uniform starts pulling out her arm and telling her she needs to leave. She doesn't want to leave, and she stays in her seat while the man pulls on her arm. The man with the microphone, I kid you not, says out loud with his mouth, just look at this. This little girl is afraid to leave. She spoke up and now she doesn't want to be, and now she doesn't want to suffer the consequences. Another man nearby yelled, you've been told too many times to close your mouth and you don't close your mouth. I mean, oh my God. Right. So next, I assume you've seen the video in which plainclothes men assault her for about 3 minutes and drag her out, her shoe gone, a shirt coming off. The whole auditorium just sort of sat there. Well, some embodied the epitome of unkindness and just laughed at her or called at her, telling her she deserved what was happening to her. But the others just sort of stood there and maybe complained verbally. One witness later said she hadn't done anything because it was, quote, scary. And I'm sure that it was. Another example this week is Admiral Lisa Franchetti, who has spent 40 years at sea commanding a destroyer, 2 carrier strike groups, as well as the United States Sixth Fleet, who was, this week, suddenly and without cause, fired from her job as the first woman ever to be the chief of naval operations and as well as a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right alongside Charles Q. Brown Jr., who we discussed in episode 1, the only black man on the Joint Chiefs, too. Same day, the white woman and the black man, all the white men stayed put, and these two were replaced by gallingly unqualified individuals, as if the point was the gaslighting after all, with all the accusations of people of color or women in general ascending only because of some acronym. So it's an angry, nasty, dangerous tale. You know that moment in action movies. You hear me talk about action movies a lot. You know that moment in action movies where the hero thinks he's killed the bad guy, but the bad guy is only passed out, and he has one more serious go in him? When the dragon's tail isn't a part of the sky, those topics are what gets dangerous as we are discharging them. So the bad guy gets up, right? Usually behind the hero. We're looking at the hero like he's awake. He is not dead, right? And the hero doesn't see him, and then, whoo, close call, right? That is the attack on the feminine and on the marginalized. We are in that moment. You see an overwhelming rise of oppressive tactics towards women's voice, autonomy, bodies, power, all over the globe. In Afghanistan, women have lost access to everything other than their homes and their relatives. Literally every single thing in their lives, including the right to speak in public, has been stripped from them. In China, you see the government censoring, making illegal feminist content and words related to feminism. You see the unbelievable crackdowns in Iran over the hijab. These phenomena are global, and they are wounding us deeply as they gasp for air. We must hold onto our hats. We must listen to the divine feminine inside of ourselves and pick up Aries' sword. The time to fight is soon. Okay, 3 quick things before I go. 1, tomorrow is February 28th. I'm not sure if you've been aware of a call for a general boycott of anything that is not locally owned. But I wanted to do my part to spread that idea for a few reasons. I think it's a lovely idea if we were actually able to pull it off. Like really, really, really make an impact and really collectively use our money as our voice and communicate the profound unacceptability of what is happening to us, to our governments, to the bodies and the rights of so many people, so many kinds of people who are not white men. So like buy what you need from the big boys for whatever your reason is today. Tomorrow, try to buy nothing. And if you must, buy from people you know could really use your money because you know them personally. It'll be fun. We'll make a point and we'll feel together. Pluto, the planet of transformation, a really big deal planet, actually, is in the skyland of Aquarius and will be for more than 30 years. Aquarius is the people. So Mr. Transformation has entered the land of the people. This is why on election day, the astrologists were saying, this seems like it's going one way, but I'm telling you, look at the sky. I don't know what that means, but something's going on with the people. Something is going to occur with the people, right? So this is the people coming together to cause transformation as the collective. This is our moment to take our country back so that we are in a position to begin to build what we can imagine together. Different, more, better, dramatically upgraded from what we've been living in. Really organized by and for the people. As a clunky, messy, disparate coalition. Let's do this. Thing number 2 is the new moon today. So a new moon is when the moon and the sun are in the same spot in the sky and the moon is fully dark. It's starting over. So it's new. It's brand new. There's an emoji for it in your phone. It's a little circle, dark circle moon. Today's new moon, for a lot of reasons, is a new moon in which we should dream a dream. And by dream a dream, I mean one for you personally and one for the collective. Do both. You can have more than one dream. The funny thing about manifestations is that we don't always manifest. We don't always ask for what we really, truly, deeply want. We always do kind of this surface thing, or this thing that we tell other people that we want, or this thing that we've heard from other people, or this we imagine we've seen other people living or having, right? We don't always kind of spend the time to really know what it is we really want for ourselves and for our country. What do you like? What's your confession alone in the dark to yourself about what you actually really want for you? For you, what do you want? And what do you want for us? What do you want us to have? What do you want us to be? What do you want us to become? There's a lot of reasons that I'm not going to go into it right now, but there's a lot of reasons that this particular moon is a very powerful day to confess this to the sky, right? To bring about your version of what your life can be and your version of what we could all become together. Today is a fine day to wish it. And thing 3 is, what's this all for? What do I want from you? One of my girlfriends asked me this last night. She was like, I really like what you're doing, but what do you want from us? And what I want is to build community. What I want is to build harbor. What I want is to have a place of restoration, have a place of reflection, have a place of hope, have a place of sense making that we build collectively. You have my email. It's in the information. Talk to me. I don't totally understand at all yet how comments and everything like that works. So if you know more than I do, you can begin that too. But I mean, if people get nasty, I don't know what I'll do about that. I assume they will. But let's talk to each other. Let's be together. Let's build something, right? Like, let's build a coalition together is what I want. But for now, until that manifests, what I really want for you from this is hope, is faith, is vision. Like, what does your sight say? What do you see? What do you want us to have? What do you want for yourself? Let's cause it, because we are powerful beings. And what the sky is telling us is that this is the time we get to become what we want as a country, as a people. So let's dream it together. And then last, I want to leave you with a little chunk of poetry. This one is from Marge Piercy. Speaking of Gen X women's studies classes, Piercy's poem is called Unlearning to Not Speak. And this is the final section of it. Phrases of men who lectured her drift and rustle in piles. Why don't you speak up? Why are you shouting? You have the wrong answer, wrong line, wrong face. They tell her she is womb man, baby machine, mirror image, toy, earth mother, and penis poor. A dish of synthetic strawberry ice cream. She grunts to a halt. She must learn again to speak, starting with I, starting with we, starting as the infant does, with her own true hunger and pleasure and rage. I will see you tomorrow. Let's find our hunger, let's find our pleasure, let's find our rage, y'all. Until then, may you honor both your capacity for surviving the blows of this dragon and your capacity for righteous anger. In these times, we need both. If you want to spend a little time together, let me know. We can look into your chart and see what the skies might be telling you about you. And until then, be well, be conscious, and be kind.